Preparing to live stream the meeting. I'm going to mute myself for one moment, okay?
Sure.
Okay, we are now live. We did it.
Yay, great.
Yay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Santa Fe Reporters Bring a Friend series, the third in our exciting live series with notable Santa Fe people. Before we get into it with tonight's guest, my name is Alex DeVore. I'm the culture editor, and I want to let everyone know that if you visit sfreporter.com/friends and donate something before midnight tonight, you will automatically be entered to win a $50 gift card to Second Street Brewery. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Now then, that's out of the way. Let's welcome our guest. We have with us Hannah Yohalem. Yohalem? Yohalem, my mistake. And Hannah is the co-director at Vital Spaces, a local nonprofit that she'll tell us more about. But in a nutshell, they rent buildings that would otherwise not be used, and then in turn rent space within them to artists at way more affordable prices than, seems even reasonable. So Hannah, welcome, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Awesome. So let's just go ahead and jump right in. My explanation of what Vital Spaces does, I'm sure, does not cover it all. So tell me, or everyone, a little bit about Vital Spaces and what you do.
Sure. Yeah, so we're a pretty new nonprofit in town. This is just the beginning of our second year. And we're based on a model that Jonathan Boyd, the founder, sort of thought of on his own and then found out that there was an org in New York that does something similar called Shashama. And so, yeah, Alex got it right. You got it right. Yeah, and I'm like public versus conversation. We find spaces that are, awaiting redevelopment, have been vacant for a while, for some reason, don't have a long-term tenant, and see if they will work with us to let us use the space on an interim basis. And then we, in turn, rent it out to artists. Buildings that we can get for longer than 6 or 8 months, we try and turn into studio spaces. We've found that that's really what the artist community in Santa Fe needs. And then if we get something for a shorter period of time, we will do exhibitions there. So we had a small storefront that Thomas Properties let us use in their shopping center that we only had for a few months at a time. And so we just did monthly rotating exhibitions.
Okay. And there was that space on, I want to say Johnson Street by the O'Keefe. Yes. I know I saw a few things there.
Yeah, so that was one of our first spaces. That was the old Asian Adobe at 310 Johnson. And so we did stuff over 2 summers ago. We did some shows and exhibitions there. At the moment, we have studio space and some smaller event performance space at 220 Otero Street. Okay. And we have a space on the Midtown campus that the city owns. That was the old gallery for the college. I moved away from Santa Fe and then moved back, so I'm still the College of Santa Fe, but I know it was SFU-80 in between. And we just got a space in the outlet malls on the south side of town.
Right, okay. So those are the 3 spaces that you're working on right now.
At the moment,
yeah. I feel is Otero a longer term space, or is it just that you've been in there a while?
We've just been in there a while, so again, I think they're hoping to eventually redevelop it, but until they get all the permits and that happens, we're there. It's actually actively for lease. So again, that's one of the ways that we're able to get these buildings at lower rates, is that they don't have a commitment to us beyond month to month. Although we try again for studios to have spaces that we can keep longer so that we're not moving artists in and then asking them to like move their whole studio out really quickly.
So roughly how many artists are part of Vital Spaces right now?
So we have, I think I just counted 27 with studios at the moment. Yeah, and we're our next, if you're an artist and you're interested in applying, our next round closes December 15th, and we do have a few more spaces at the outlet malls that we haven't moved people into yet. So yeah, it's significant, and there's so much need for studios. We turn people away every time we do a call, which I hate. And like, ideally we would give everyone one, but we just don't have enough space. And so we do have an amazing volunteer curatorial committee from a bunch of different orgs in town who have lent us their like knowledge and expertise and just like community mindedness and help us pick. But every time we want everyone who applies.
Sure. How does it, say I'm an artist and I'm looking for space, how does it work? I mean, we'll include a link in the YouTube when we go on live. How do people apply and get involved?
Yeah, so you just go to vitalspaces.org and we have a apply page and we just take rolling applications. For studios, we do reviews like quarterly, just because again, our curatorial committee are all volunteers and we don't want to take up too much of their time. And so this quarter closes December 15th. And we try to sort of accept people when we have space, but we do also create a wait list. So we're also always looking for additional buildings. And so you will be reviewed in the like next quarterly review from whenever you apply, and then either get put in a space right away, get told that you're put on the wait list, or get unfortunately told we don't have space right now, but we invite people to reapply in the future with other projects.
Is the idea that there's like a constant turnover, or do artists apply multiple times? Can they?
People can apply multiple times. And we, at the moment, are letting people keep studios as long as we keep a building.
Wow.
Which, because again, like we're not trying to do a residency model, we really are trying to support the local artist community and keep people who live here living here. And so we felt like letting people like actually get more rooted in a space made more sense, but there is also so much demand. So that is something that we might adjust to like a 2-year term potentially to be able to serve more people in the future.
Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh yeah, and I was just gonna add too that we also give space for people to do exhibitions, and we also program our own exhibitions and events. So we have, so that application is online too for just exhibition space. Like if you have a show that you know you want the theme, like you know everything, you're ready to go with it, we can just give you a space for that. And then we also sort of curate and invite, do calls for things that we're working on where we are sort of, and we try to always pay people for the ones that we are organizing.
Yeah, I mean, can people do like shows where they're selling their work, or is it just more come and check it out?
No, totally. You can sell your work. We like ask if you can donate some portion of your proceeds back to Vital Spaces. That would be great. But if like you're not financially able to, also no pressure. We've done performance art. I think we've gotten a reputation as more of a visual arts space, and definitely the majority of our people, studio holders in our shows have been that, but dance, it's harder for studios to help the performers, but for performance, like event spaces, when we're allowed to do in-person events again, we are for all the forms.
Okay. And you got some pretty notable people up in there. I feel like Jason Garcia had a studio space for a little while, and I know Warehouse 21 is using space on Otero Street. So it's not just open to individuals. It sounds like maybe organizations, fledgling organizations, youth organizations, that'd be a good place to start.
Yeah, we try, we're not, we sort of wanted to draw the line at like being office space for other organizations, because that doesn't feel like the type of the community vibe that we're going for in this space. But Warehouse has their recording studio with us, and that felt sort of more in keeping. But yeah, collectives, Good Mood Design, which is a design magazine, Good Mood Studios. has their like editorial office. And so again, it's like not an office in the sense of like they're a nonprofit and it's the like people doing the books. It's like they're editing and designing the magazine there.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Jonathan Boyd a little bit too, because he did something that I think is so cool. And here's the story as I heard it told briefly, which was that he founded this thing. He was going along doing it. And at a certain point, you and Rashan Ahmad got involved. And at one point or another, he asked you both, like, what can I be doing better? And the conversation kind of turned to like, well, I don't know. It'd be pretty cool if, you know, not just a white guy ran this place. And he said, you are right. And he stepped down and let you all into the role.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite, I was hired as a like administrative assistant and then program manager, director. So it was just Jonathan and I, but Jonathan the whole time has been doing this without getting paid. Like he was just volunteer. So for the first like 6 months, I was the only employee, and he committed so much time to it and really like helped build this program and like made it able to continue and exist. And then Rashan has a studio with us actually. And so he started being involved and was like, one of the things we ask studio holders is to try and do public programming and sort of engage more outward focused. And Rashan was super all over that. And he and I organized a zine workshop together that a bunch of different artists in town helped teach for. And we came and met with you, Alex, at the Santa Fe Reporter. And so Rashan got more and more involved. And then, so I was already working for the org and we talked to Rashan about like, if you want to consult or sort of be involved in some capacity, he was talking about maybe being on the board. And then, he and Jonathan had this conversation about like, actually, like, I don't, like, if I'm doing this, I think I should actually be able to do it. And like, don't just bring me on as like the Black dude to make this organization that you started look good. And Jonathan was like, yeah, fair. And so he's still on the board and is super involved. And we are so grateful for his help. And I am loving working with Rashan. I think we're a really great team. Yeah.
Boy, Jonathan makes really amazing furniture. I just think I should mention it.
Yes. He was continuing. He had his furniture business was fully happening while he was running Vital Spaces. So
that's a lot. I do one thing in a day and I'm like totally wiped out. Let's talk about you too, because you're here, but also because I was looking over your CV. Don't take this the wrong way, Santa Fe, or you, Hannah, what are you doing here? Like PhD candidate at Princeton, all these degrees and internships and magazines, and you're handling Picasso work and so forth and so on. What makes Santa Fe the place that you want to be?
Yeah, I grew up here. I was born and raised here. And when I left for college, I didn't think that I was going to come back. I loved it here. I loved town and the place and the people, but I didn't want to go into the gallery world. And so for the arts, it didn't really feel like there were many other options. And I'm not an artist. I like definitely am a administrator and art and like writer and like to think and talk about art, but I'm not a maker. And so I wasn't sure how to fit in Santa Fe. And I was on the East Coast for 10 years, in LA most recently, and just had this itch, kept being like, why couldn't it work? Like, and I do think I had a number of friends from high school who had also left and recently moved back. And it feels like Santa Fe is becoming more accessible. Like there's more stuff, and like the Reporter, I think in the last 10 years it was not as much of a like hard-hitting journal, like I don't know. It was a like smaller local. I feel like you guys are really doing amazing work now, and I think there are a lot. But it just felt possible in a way that it hadn't when I was in high school, to do what I wanted to do and be here. Yeah.
Had you already lined something up? Like I know you worked at, I want to say the New Mexico Museum of Art for a little while. Did you come back specifically and jump right into that?
So yeah, the New Mexico Museum of Art was a summer, was just a summer actually between college and grad school.
Okay.
And I did an internship at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum the summer after grad school as well, or college as well. So kept like circling back to town. But this, I was living in LA. My wife and I hated it. We had moved back west. She's from there.
I'm
So we
there
were
and
like,
I also hate it.
yeah, we kept being like, I don't know, maybe we'd like it this time. Definitely not. So we both started looking for jobs here. And I actually got Vital Spaces while living in LA. So I moved back for working with Vital Spaces. So I've only been back a little more than a year.
Okay. So, I mean, with all of this, museum experience and training and critical thought and so on, why go into the nonprofit sector? Not that there aren't, nonprofit museums, but it just seems like such a wildly different world.
Yeah. I think one of the things that has happened over the course of my many years in academia and the fact that I have not finished my PhD is that it felt really isolated and it felt really elitist and it didn't feel directly connected. And I actually took a semester leave and worked on a congressional campaign in LA, one of the red to blue flips in 2018.
Wow.
And that was amazing. And I was an organizer, and so like was dealing directly with people, and that sort of nonprofit arts feels like that intersection where it is like community organizing, it is like grassroots, it's helping individuals, it's connecting to individuals, but also I can bring in some of this experience and like help artists write artist statements or apply for grants or like have sort of bigger picture ideas about what a show is going to be that can connect sort of to the broader art world that I know. And for like Windows on the Future, which was we did windows display, storefront window displays all over Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and Taos over this summer that were visible from outside for COVID reasons. And I was able to tap into my network of sort of curators all over the country. And so every artist who participated in that had a one-on-one Zoom call with a curator about their installation.
Gotcha.
So it feels like a way, and yeah, and like not just me, obviously the other people who helped organize Windows on the Future also had connections to people we talked to. I don't want to just be like, I was the only one with connections. And we talked to curators in town as well. And like Mary Scully talked to a bunch of people. So it was a combo of people from the East Coast and people from town talking, but just like helping create sort of that network and bring some of these opportunities and like use what I gained from being in sort of elite settings on the East Coast and like be like, there are artists in town who could benefit from this.
Sure. You were just visiting the elite scenes to bring the resources back here and be punk rock about it. I mean, is that like a Vital Spaces mission to like resources beyond like, here's a cheap space, like we're going to connect you with curators, we're going to connect you with whoever?
Yes, definitely. I think that's where we sort of diverged from Shashama, which was the organization we're based on in New York, where in New York, really what artists just need is cheap space. Like there are so many other, like they have their own communities, they have, like there's so much happening that like, just give me an inexpensive studio. And we're seeing that like while Santa Fe people certainly also just need inexpensive studios, that there also are other ways where we can sort of help people develop. And I think often artist development is like professionalization and like how do you market yourself and like how do you create an Etsy store or something, which is valuable, and learning how to sell your work is important, but I think it's not the only thing. And so like we really want that, like those discussions. Actually, one of the things we're planning for this COVID world is to try and create a like discussion group and bring in guest speakers, some of them local, but also the benefit of Zoom is that we can bring in guest speakers from elsewhere and like have it be for artists to like think more deeply about their practices. And again, some of the benefits of like what I've been able to do. And Rika Maestas, who's assisting us and working part-time, is also like has a degree from USC. And so like bringing in more people that can like help create some of these conversations that like people are certainly having on their own. Again, not to say that like people aren't having these conversations, but that like we are excited to continue them here.
I think it's interesting. I mean, what interests me about it is that we hear so much like, oh, Santa Fe is this huge art market. Oh, the third largest art market is, I don't know like where that number comes from, but that's what you hear, second or third largest in the world. And I think like that subtly suggests to people that the only reason to do this, the only way to enjoy doing this is if you are gonna make money off of this. So then like a decentralized, democratic, like here's a cheap space, do an exhibit or don't kind of thing, it feels radical at this point in Santa Fe history, which leads me to my question, should we be nervous about the pandemic as far as vital spaces goes?
I think we have been really lucky. We have a number of like really generous supporters. And so, and again, I think to Jonathan's extreme credit, he did a lot of groundwork to sort of get us set up. And so we have a bit of a buffer that like, especially he spent like a whole year without having a space, just fundraising. Mm-hmm. And so now that we actually like do have spaces, some of that carries over. So I feel very lucky and grateful to have that buffer. And I do think like Santa Fe does see itself as an artistic town. And so people have been really excited to support this. And like, we're starting a community arts closet where there'll be like a food pantry, but for art supplies. Yeah, and like people have been so into that. And I feel like some places people will be like, why would people need free art supplies? Like they need free food. And it's like, yes, but also free art supplies.
Right. You can't hurt anybody.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know. And we are, again, like trying to be creative. Like our whole model is based on space. Luckily, the artists are still able to use their studios because they're separate individual spaces. And so that is continuing, but we haven't been able to do in-person exhibitions, but trying to get creative with online stuff. And we're working on a new project that's going to launch soon. That's a series of what we're calling intersections, where we're inviting artists who work in different mediums to all perform in the same space, but at different times and on a similar shared theme. And then Ditch the Box is editing that together for us right now. And so again, like ways of thinking about collaboration differently. And so be like, okay, none of these people will actually have been in the same space at the same time, but at the end, there'll be a piece that they all worked on together. And so, and then bringing them hopefully together to talk about like, what is it like to see a piece that you performed by yourself in a room suddenly like interwoven with someone else's work.
That idea.
Thanks.
Interesting. Okay. So now that you and Rashan Ahmad are behind the wheel, and you've already been talking about some things you want to do in the future, I mean, what other kinds of things are we going to see in the future? And real quick, actually, before we get to that, if people want to donate to Vital Spaces, they can and should whenever they want to, video or not. That's vitalspaces.org, correct?
Correct. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, there's a donate button, and then it's also often at the like bottom of each page. Thank you.
That's a really cool tax write-off to me.
Yeah, it is. We are a 501c3, so it is tax deductible.
Wow. Do you hear that, Santa Fe? Else? So yeah, we are. Wow, that was really fast, but we're kind of coming to the end of the time. Don't feel super rushed, but you know, tell us what's going to happen now.
Yeah, I mean, I think both Rashan and I are really interested in ways of bringing different parts of town together, different mediums, people who don't necessarily think that they're like of the same community. And I think despite Santa Fe being really small and in some ways being so tight knit, one of the themes that comes up in almost everyone's application for studio space is that they're excited to be in a shared space where there can be more artistic community. And so I think I'm really excited about focusing sort of more in and trying to like build that within the group of artists who have studio space. And then I think like once like we foster that more, what happens from that will be like amazing public programming. But instead of like focusing on like what we can do publicly first, being like, this group of artists like wants this. And so like we can really support this by doing more, again, like these projects where we invite people to collaborate with each other, and where we have discussion groups that aren't like, yeah, how are you marketing your work, or how, like, let me criticize your work, but like, let's actually just like talk about working together. And again, other people are certainly doing this, you know, like Alesta Agua does a lot of this. Like, we are absolutely not saying that we're inventing this, but that, yeah, helping that. And then when we can reopen again, yeah, like more events. I think Rashawn is like an incredible people gatherer. His own concerts and stuff are such great. And so I think using that power and creating more things where people can just come together.
So this is like the build a foundation time. And then assuming we can all see each other again in the summer or whenever else, it'll be like, did y'all know that Vital Spaces is like ready to go with a bunch of cool stuff?
Yeah. And I mean, these intersections, these videos will be coming out soon. The first of them is about displacement, and we filmed it in Site Santa Fe's Displaced exhibition in front of a piece by Rina Saina Kalat, who's an Indian artist, and Lara Manzanares sang, Layli Long Soldier read a poem, and Tigre Bailando danced. So I think that's going to be amazing.
Tigre, they're my next piece, Tigre Bailando. Yeah. Very excited. Last question, and then I will let you go. One thing that is really important to me is that arts reach the South Side more now than they have, because this town, and it's not any one person's fault, it's all of our faults, has not been great about that. Have you noticed now that you have this space in the outlet mall way down over there, like, were people just ready and raring to go? Like, what's happening down there?
So unfortunately, we got this space like 2 months ago. So it's still in COVID land. So we're slowly building it. One of the two community art closets is going to be at that space. So one will be at the Midtown site and one will be there, and that will open very soon. And so we hope that that will very much reach the South Side community. But in getting the space at the outlet malls, that was a big focus, that like we want that. And if you live on the South Side, please apply for a studio and say that you live on the South Side. One of our goals is that we have the studio spaces actually like serve the neighborhood that they're in and be like of and from the neighborhood that they're in. Oh. Yeah. So please apply. We still have more spaces there.
Excellent. Okay. Wow, that 30 minutes really flew by. I feel like we could have talked forever, but since we can't, let me just say thank you so much for doing this. Vitalspaces.org is the website. Donate or apply if you're an artist. Hannah Yohalem, co-director. Again, this has been the Santa Fe Reporter Bring a Friend series. We're going to keep doing them. There's great ones coming up soon. And if you visit sfreporter.com/friends and donate before midnight, you will be automatically entered to win $50 in Second Street Brewery bucks. Hannah, again, thank you so much.
Thanks, Alex.
I'm waving goodbye.